Hello and welcome back, and that's right, we got to talk about it, the WD data breach. It's coming up on 20 days now since the very first instance of this was recognised by WD, and quite a lot has happened in that time in between. Indeed, I wasn't going to make a video on this until recently when a fantastic article appeared on TechCrunch, which will 100% be linked below, went into a greater degree of detail about this incident than we've seen previously, and it kind of facilitated the need for this video when a number of you reached out to me and indeed shared the article with me several times. But before we go any further, you may not even be aware of what's been going on with WD this last couple of weeks. Before we go any further, let's summarise the timeline just a wee bit. Now, on March 26th, WD recognised on their internal systems there had been a data breach. However, when this was shared with most users, it wasn't on March 26th. When it was discovered by them, they went ahead and reported it on their own news platforms on April the 3rd, detailing that it had been recognised there had been a data breach, but not really going into a tremendous amount of detail. Indeed, most people's first knowledge of this incident came on April the 2nd, when WD suspended a number of their online services. Those of you that follow WD on Twitter or indeed own a WD product in the WD MyCloud, MyCloud Home, MyCloud Home Duo, MyCloud OS 5 systems, and indeed some of the SanDisk IBI or IBI systems there, realised that you were unable to access your system because of the streamlined design of a number of WD's MyCloud systems. First and foremost, these rely on a remote level access ping with the MyCloud servers, and when WD suspended access to these services with regard to a lot of the backup, cloud and general access privileges, the result was that a lot of users had some WD products that all of a sudden became paperweights. And that is because these systems by default in some cases were not set for LAN level access, local area network access, still bouncing from the MyCloud server. The result was these users took to Twitter and went bananas to talk about how their systems suddenly were inaccessible. Now, on April 6th, after a period of time when people were trying to access their MyCloud systems and that MyCloud server and getting a 503 service unavailable message, on April 6th, WD took to a number of platforms to detail how a lot of users could establish local area network access to their systems. Now, those of you that have followed this channel for a while will know that LAN access isn't new. It's actually quite straightforward, but because of the architectural design of these simplified systems in you know the way they've gone about trying to make it as seamless and mainstream as possible to establish anywhere all device access as securely as possible, the actual means to convert these devices to LAN access is by no means a turnkey operation. And indeed, even the guides that WD directed people towards I Hate Seagulls, they were not one-click setup. There was actually several stages to go into access them, which really did infuriate a lot of users, and arguably kind of leans back to something we talked about before when it comes to the security of network attached devices, trying to find that line between secure defaults and customized flexibility and performance there. And this is just another part of that giant tightrope walk that we have to do. Which brings us to April 12th. On April 12th, WD was keen to highlight they had re-established access to the MyCloud remote access systems there. And as of then, lots of users suddenly found that their MyCloud systems could now access those online services and they could continue as normal. But I think a lot of users for that period of time, remember that's April 2nd to April 12th, 10 days of access being virtually, at least in some users, unless they're prepared to dig in and sort out the LAN, inaccessible there, which is a substantial amount of time in terms of backup and business data, of course. Now, alongside the cloud services being suspended for that period of time, other services from WD and Western Digital as a whole also were remained offline as the company investigated the cybersecurity incident, one of which being their online store, which was showing maintenance messages on and off throughout that period. And even now, although the store is back up online, lots of the actual online purchasing options are still unavailable there. Now, We fast forward to yesterday with that TechCrunch article that we're going to talk about a little bit more, where TechCrunch spoke directly with hackers who claimed responsibility for this cyber incident. We'll go through a lot of those responses in a little bit of time in the video, but that brings us to today at April 14th here in the UK, time zone permitting for you guys watching this. And right now, although cloud access has still been granted and WD have done a few taciturn responses online via Newswire and their own social media channels, the full details of this breach, the impact of this breach, the data that has been obtained, keyword obtained, not deleted or encrypted, is still as yet to be as yet to be identified by the brand themselves and others out there. And the best we've got is that TechCrunch article. So what I'm going to do now is switch over to some of the key quotations from the article. Again, I don't want to lift it wholesale. I strongly recommend you check it out. Linked in the below description. This is just a few excerpts from that, and there's a lot more information contained in there from the alleged attackers speaking with TechCrunch there. According to the original TechCrunch article, the hackers who have breached data storage giant Western Digital claim to have stolen around 10 terabytes of data from the company, including reams of customer information. The extortionists are pushing the company to negotiate a ransom of a minimum 8 figures in exchange for not publishing the stolen data. If Western Digital doesn't get back to them, the hacker said that they are ready to start publishing the stolen data on the website of the ransomware group Alfie. The hacker said they are not directly affiliated with Alfie, but I know them to be professional. To further verify and validate these claims, the TechCrunch article goes on to say that one of the hackers spoke with TechCrunch and provided more details with the goal of verifying their claims. The hacker shared a file that was digitally signed with Western Digital's code signing certificate, showing that they could now digitally sign files to impersonate Western Digital. 2 security researchers also looked at the file and agreed it is signed with the company's certificate. The hacker who spoke to TechCrunch declined to specify what kind of customer data they have, how they originally broke into Western Digital's network, and how they maintained access to the company's network. I can say that we exploited vulnerabilities within their infrastructure and spidered our way to global administrator of their Microsoft Azure tenant, the hacker said. Screenshots shared by the hacker show a folder from a Box account apparently belonging to Western Digital, an internal email, and files stored in a private art instance, a cybersecurity product, and a screenshot of a group call where one of the participants is identified as Western Digital's Chief Information Security Officer. They also said they were able to steal data from the company's SAP back office, a back-end interface that helps companies manage e-commerce data. When questioned by TechCrunch about their motivations and goals, the hackers said their goal when they hacked Western Digital was to make money, though they decided against using ransomware to encrypt the company's files. I want to give them a chance to pay, but our callers, they have called them many times. They don't answer, and if they do, they listen and hang up. The hacker said they have also emailed several executives using their personal email addresses because their corporate email system is currently down, demanding a one-time payment. We are the vermin who breached your company. Perhaps your attention is needed, the hacker wrote, according to a copy of the email the hackers shared with TechCrunch. Continue down this path and we will retaliate. Now, one thing I really want you to take from a lot of those quotations between the alleged hackers and TechCrunch is that detail about them saying they were not going to pursue encryption or any kind of ransomware. Now, why is that? Well, I think it's relatively obvious. Even if they had got in and had access to that 10 terabytes of data and they just encrypted it on their main servers, this is WD, Western Digital we're talking about here. They would have had backup upon backup upon backup in place, and ransomware would probably have been something they could reverse with a wholesale backup very, very easily there. So I can kind of understand the reasoning for them not pursuing that. But still, nonetheless, if they have obtain 10 terabytes of data, and we still don't have full confirmation of whether that is corporate data or end user data, that is a big deal. And this has been, you know, more than 2 weeks, coming up on 20 days since the initial infiltration. And because this is, you know, if going by what we've seen in that TechCrunch article, WD are not really entertaining the hackers' demands here, what does that really mean? I guess the big question is, will WD entertain these hackers? Will they give in to their 8-figure demands? And I think the realistic answer is they probably won't, at least to a larger degree at all. Notwithstanding that the content of that 10 TB data may contain ready encrypted data that can't be accessed to start with, despite the validation of certain files in there, WD may also go down the road of thinking, we're not going to pay because this may facilitate future instances. Also, there is no real guarantee that that data, once it has been paid for to not be shared online, there's no guaranteeing it won't be shared online anyway. And to facilitate future instances, one could take the stance that WD shouldn't entertain these kind of attacks. However, at the same time, this is still potentially consumer data, potentially corporate data, and therefore there is that tightrope that is going to have to be walked by this brand here, and one way or another responsibility is going to be at their door here. So they need to be a little bit more forthcoming about this incident, if not very, very soon, then at least on a later date detailing what happened, when sharing that information is not going to interrupt or undermine internal investigations, because otherwise this is a lot of egg on their face about this. Case in point, back in summer 2021, we covered it here on the channel, the remote data wipe of lots of MyCloud personal cloud systems that affected a lot of WD users. In that instance, this was not an exploitative attack for people to make money. That was WD systems, not this one. It was the My Personal Home systems that were being remote accessed, and a triggered wipe of all the data inside there. And afterwards, WD did detail a lot of what happened. They did help a lot of users migrate away from those systems onto new systems. They also helped with data recovery in a lot of users that were affected by that. But again, how they approach this new instance, particularly if the cart, if the horse is already bolted, this is going to be a very different kettle of fish there. Unfortunately, we don't know much more beyond this point. Although this video has been largely facilitated and necessitated by that TechCrunch article, maybe I'll be making another video like this in a few weeks where we will detail exactly what happened. Above and beyond that, we've already talked about how some of the older generation WD systems ran the older versions of the MyCloud OS, some of which aren't supporting the latest OS 5 versions, may still be vulnerable because of a commitment by the brand on future security and feature updates on these systems can only go on so long. And if you are on an older generation OS 3, OS 4 WD system in the cloud series, you may already be looking elsewhere. Perhaps you're one of the users that lost access to their system for over a week and are now thinking, I can't stomach this happening a second time. Were you impacted by this? Have you got more information on this? If you were impacted by this and you were in correspondence with WD, share your experience with other users. And again, I cannot stress enough, not only is all the information we talked about today that I've referenced linked in the description below, but first and foremost, check out that TechCrunch article where a lot more information has been garnered for this video. It's a real great resource for information there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've not been affected by this. And again, if you have, let us know below and share your experience. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching. There's an article as well below over on NASCompares that will update regularly. And other than that, stay safe, back up, back up, back up, and have a great weekend.